Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast. We are continuing our election coverage here at KSJE by offering the candidates for San Juan County Sheriff some free airtime. We are presenting these interviews in the order that the candidates responded to our offer. And so the first candidate to reply is Kevin Burns, who is going to be joining me today to talk a little bit about his campaign for San Juan County Sheriff. Mr. Burns, welcome to KSJE. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. 20 years, almost 20 years with the Sheriff's Office, yes?
Yes, sir.
In San Juan County?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about your work in that area. It seems like you've worked in a lot of different areas of the Sheriff's Office.
So when I saw the guys that had gone before me and saw the retirement boxes, the shadow boxes, and they had all the different badges, I realized that I wanted that. Mm-hmm. So I got a chance to do a lot of cool things. I did patrol, detective, street crimes. Then I went to narcotics for a little over 4 years. Came out, patrol lieutenant, detective lieutenant, and then made captain under Sheriff Ferrari in 2019. And so it's been an amazing run, and I've got a chance to work with a lot of amazing people and serve the community at a high level, and I want to continue to do that.
By seeing so many different areas of the department, does that give you kind of some insights, or do you think that gives you some insights into how the department works and give you some opportunities, I guess, if you're elected sheriff, to be able to work in those areas, improve those areas, or at least be more aware of how those departments are supposed to function?
So operationally, absolutely, the safe apprehension and targeting of criminal offenders is critical, and getting a chance to do that is incredibly important. Safety of our deputies is important. Safety of the citizens is important. But one of the things that I got a chance to do is when I through the narcotics piece, when I was director, I got a chance to manage civilian employees and manage administrative operations. So then when I came out, my current position is I have records, evidence, IT, PIO, and those areas, you really understand the importance of those folks and how they are really core positions. Our deputies, they move through their careers and they move a lot, but it's our civilian professional staff that really are critical to the product that we put outside the building. And so, both are incredibly important to what we do, right? You've got the deputies that respond to the public safety concerns, the calls for service, and put their lives on the line for the community. But you've got the civilians that are incredibly important to what we do from the quality of the product that we put out. And so getting a chance to see that from a business perspective, it's incredibly important to understand those, and I'm thankful for that level of experience.
Right. And you are also, I think, pretty proud of the endorsements that you've received in your campaign for sheriff?
So, the endorsements are people that know you. The endorsements are people that understand your character, and they've put themselves out there to say that this person is qualified. And so, we've got Sheriff Ferrari that gave us an endorsement back in October, which we're incredibly proud of. And I tell people, if you want to know about me, he'll answer the phone and he'll tell you who I am. And I've got Captain Fetzer, retired Mark Fetzer. He's an amazing human being, and I got a chance. What's funny is he was one of my field training officers many, many years ago, and so he kind of helped form who I am as a law enforcement officer and my desire to serve. And so, some of the folks that are outside the organization, some of the sheriff from Missoula County, Montana, got a chance to work with him and meet him, and some of the other folks that have put their, gave us their endorsements, and we've got more coming. But that's kind of fun for the public to see that these are trusted individuals that have not only had amazing careers themselves, but are willing to say, yes, Kevin Burns is qualified and prepared to do the job, and so we are incredibly thankful for those.
Sure. The sheriff is the highest elected law enforcement official in any county. That's a big responsibility. You're a law enforcement official and also a politician. Some candidates may not like having to deal with both of those things at the same time, but that's a big responsibility. How do you see that as being that main highest ranking elected law enforcement officer in a county?
So the direct connection between the citizens and the sheriff is incredibly important, and that's why it's so important, is that the citizens, I've watched my boss over the years take as many phone calls from citizens as deputies do for calls for service, and so that connection is incredibly important. His focus and his responsibility, the sheriff's responsibility, is to be the keeper of the peace, and bring all offenders in front of the judge, and so there's the operational law enforcement aspect of the job, but then to your point, there's also the political aspect of it, of having to advocate for those things that we believe in from a public safety and a constitutional standpoint in Santa Fe, and then also on behalf of the citizens in the public, is to understand that the things that are important to the citizens are also important to the sheriff. More specifically, the amendments like the Second Amendment and the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, these are things that are incredibly important. And so, being prepared to advocate for those things is absolutely part of the responsibility of the sheriff, and I don't take those things lightly.
You got to some of the other questions I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Constitution and some of those constitutionality of laws that are passed both statewide and federally. And how would you deal with some of those issues that may come to your office if elected sheriff about enforcing or being asked to enforce maybe a law that you have an issue with constitutionality?
So we don't have any special powers that prevent us from enforcing or not enforcing a law that we don't wish to. Now, we obviously have discretion. We have a responsibility to enforce the law. The judicial process is when we break it down into the three parts of our government, that's where the judicial component comes in, and that's where that battle would have to be fought. Now, hopefully, if something were to come up, that we would be able to avert it, like we did with SB 17, is to make sure that the legislators understand that it's unconstitutional and that the citizens do not support it across the state.
Remind us, SB 17. What did that deal with?
That was the proposed legislation that was going to make it incredibly difficult for businesses that sell firearms to sell firearms. The mandates from security, all of the things that were wrapped around in that made it incredibly difficult as a mechanism to try to restrict firearm sales.
Thank you.
So that piece, and that's not shown to restrict or inhibit crime. Criminals do not abide by the laws anyways, and so the SB 17, all it was going to do was negatively impact lawful firearm sales to lawful citizens, and so that's where we would hopefully fight that battle from an upstream intervention standpoint, as opposed to waiting for it to pass and then trying to fight that battle, which is what we had with the 7-day waiting period. That was deemed unconstitutional, but we're still having to deal with it. And so, we just have to stand firm and stand up to the legislators that are proposing these, and make sure that they understand and rally the citizens and stand firm to say that this is unconstitutional. We're not going to stand for it, and that's where the sheriff is in an incredibly important position, and the sheriff has previously done those things for us.
Right. You talked about discretion when it comes to maybe enforcing laws that are on the books or that are passed. I don't think that's used very often, but I could be mistaken. But how do you feel about being able to do that, I guess, in your role if elected sheriff, of providing that discretion about telling your deputies, well, this one, let's enforce this, but this one maybe not so much?
So, the discretion is used on a daily basis. It's this, when a deputy pulls over a citizen and you've got soccer mom that maybe she's going 10 or 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, and she's got 3 kids in the car and they're screaming and she's trying to get somebody to a soccer game, a deputy at that point in time has the opportunity to say, "Ma'am, please slow down. I'm gonna give you a warning citation," knowing that she's got a full plate. And the discretion is used by law enforcement officers on a regular basis. And so it's incredibly important for us to understand the difference between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. And so it's obviously we recognize violence. There's really no discretion there. You're going to go to jail. And there's a victim that needs to be made whole again as best as we can. And our job from a law enforcement standpoint, that's where that comes into be. But if you've got a young person that maybe commits a minor crime and we take that case to court, we're not gonna advocate for a lengthy jail time when we know that young people often make mistakes and that they're going to change from that. And so discretion is used on a very, very regular basis, and we try to give our deputies and law enforcement officers the autonomy to use some common sense in that circumstance and understand that we've all been there at some point.
Got it. Thank you for explaining that to me. I appreciate that. And that context is very important as well. When we talk about crime and juvenile crime, do you feel that the penalties in New Mexico fit some of the crimes that we're seeing juveniles committing in San Juan County and elsewhere across the state? Or could more be done, I guess, from a legislative standpoint to maybe increase penalties for the younger offenders?
So we've met law enforcement leaders across the state have met numerous times, and basically, we already knew this, is that we've recognized that our criminal code, our juvenile criminal code, is not caught up to the level of crimes that are being committed by the juveniles now. We've got 14 to 17-year-olds committing heinous, violent crimes using firearms, and they're getting off because the juvenile code was written many years ago based on status offenses and lower level crimes of truancy and shoplifting and those kinds of things. So our juvenile code hasn't caught up to that, and so it needs to be rewritten so that it encompasses and better holds those juveniles that are to be held accountable on those heinous violent crimes, because they already know, because we know from jail tapes and other mechanisms that they don't take it serious, because they know that they're not going to be held accountable. And so it definitely needs to be addressed.
Are they playing the system?
Absolutely, they're playing the system. They're fully aware, because a lot of times these are not first-time offenses. These are second, third, fourth offenses, and they're out, and they're gaining illegal access to firearms to be able to recommit these heinous crimes.
Gotcha. We just have a couple of minutes remaining this morning with our discussion. Top 3 issues facing San Juan County that, as sheriff, you would try to address?
So I think substance abuse is an issue. That's something that drives crime. It drives, vehicular issues as far as DWIs. Mental health issues is always something that we have to be concerned of. Our mental health program is incredibly important, and it's more robust than it was when I started, and I would like to see more resources put into that so that we can divert those individuals that don't need to be incarcerated. And then lastly, the violent crime is that when we focus on target hardening our businesses and our homes and our industrial complexes, that's going to give us more time to focus on those violent offenders, those chronic repeat offenders that are being cycled out through our corrections. And so that's really what the driver of recidivism is, our failures in corrections. And so that's an area that we are going to focus on day one, is going after these individuals that commit these violent crimes. And so that's the 3 main components.
Yes, okay, sir. Very good. Have you announced your undersheriff yet? Have you made that decision?
No, that's something that I don't think is anything that needs to be convolute the situation right now. I think it's important that the man stand on his own 2 feet, and a candidate be able to express his platform and what he stands for, because the undersheriff is going to be carrying out that mission that the sheriff carries out. And so I've got some great options, got some great people in mind, but it is my responsibility, and I will have the connection to the citizens, and the sheriff has that responsibility, and the under sheriff will be a deputy of the sheriff, and so just as I am now, and so I have not and will not until after the primary.
Okay. All right. If folks want to find out more about you and your campaign, what's the best way to do that?
So obviously we've got our Kevin Burns for Sheriff Facebook page. There's a lot of information that comes out on there, and then we've got the Burns for Sheriff website. So if you have any more questions, please look us up on those two locations.
All right. Very good. Kevin Burns, thank you for sitting down with me and talking about your campaign. Good luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. That is Sheriff's candidate Kevin Burns, my guest this morning here on KSJE. Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.